Welcome to the first in the Bitesize housing series, Domestic Minimum Energy Efficiency Standards. EPCs first became a requirement in the private rental sector from October 2008. From 2018, the first EPC target score was set at an E rating, which was a requirement for all new tenancies. Then from April 2020, all existing tenancies needed to be an E rating. Originally, many exemptions to MEES could be cited by a landlord as to why they could not meet the E rating. The no upfront cost exemption meant no money had to be spent by a landlord on the EPC recommendations, and they were only required to make improvements where grant funding was available. In 2019, the no upfront cost exemption was phased out, and a spending cap of £3,500 per property was set. This spend cap could include backdated spend on energy efficiency improvements from September 2017, including any grant funding and applicable VAT. In April 2020, all exemptions based only on the no upfront cost were made void and no longer apply. MEES will target further improvements in the private rental sector. The government has consulted on a possible requirement for all new tenancies to be at a level C by 2025, followed by the requirement for all existing tenancies to be at a level C by 2028. There is also a recommendation that the spending cap is then raised to £10,000. The government is also targeting an EPC Level C for all owner-occupiers by 2035 as part of the drive to net zero. Although these provisions are yet to be enacted in legislation, it does show the possible future trajectory of the legislation as the government grapples with the issues of reducing carbon emissions and climate change. Landlords must have a valid EPC to lawfully market and let a rented property, with few exceptions. EPCs are required for all marketed sales, commercial lets and public buildings. In most cases, all existing tenancies require a valid EPC and should adhere to the target E rating requirement, unless there is a relevant exemption, which must then be registered on the PRS Exemptions Register. It is a common misconception that when renting a listed building an EPC is not required. You must still obtain an EPC and carry out the permitted improvements in line with the current MEES guidance and within what is permitted under the building's listed or conservation status. The private rented sector has the worst average energy performance of all housing tenures. Properties were not originally incentivised to be improved, and this was partly blamed on what we refer to as the split incentive, meaning that a landlord had not been incentivised to pay for improvements that will only benefit the tenant. There are many reasons why it makes sense for landlords to invest in making their properties energy efficient, aside of the MEES regulations. For example, increases in the property value, future sale or lending against the property, a decrease in maintenance costs by preventing condensation or damp, lost rental income due to tenants moving out over property condition, feeling cold, or not being able to afford the heating bills. It is unlawful to let a privately rented property without a valid EPC. Either trading standards or your local council can impose fines of up to £750 for each occurrence of non-compliance. Fines imposed for non-compliance with MEES are far higher, with fines currently up to £5,000 per property, with recommendations from 2025 to raise this to a maximum of £30,000. You'll also need a valid EPC to be able to serve notice to a tenant under Section 21. Without one, your notice may be invalid and overturned. There are now more compelling reasons than ever to ensure you are compliant with all the MEES requirements. Watch our other Bitesize Housing Series videos to learn more about the minimum energy efficiency standards, what you need to do, and how you can go about it, with advice and guidance from local housing and energy efficiency professionals. Contact us if you need any further advice or assistance, and we'll be happy to help.